The Tigers beat the Twins in the penultimate series of the season. Let's break this one down on today's Locked On Twins postcast.
You are Locked On Twins postcast, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, your team every day.
And welcome to another edition of our Locked On Twins postcast. Today is Sunday, October 2nd. I'm the host of Locked On Twins, Nash Walker, here with writer and reporter at Access Twins, Mr. Brandon Warren. Before we get started, today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. It is football season. Vikings got a big win in London. They're 3-1. If you think they're going to win more games, go bet on them. BetOnline.net. It's not just sports gambling. They have podcasts, they have news, they have notes, anything you're looking for. It's where the game starts. That's BetOnline.net. Brandon, penultimate series of the season in Detroit. Twins lose it. What's your takeaway?
I think, and we have to touch on Simeon Woods Richardson probably more in depth than this, but it gave you pretty much all you could have expected for a young guy making his first big league start. Beyond that, though, just a sloppy game, sloppy effort, and really just, teams going through the motions, which makes it not that interesting to watch at this point in the season. And, other than that, we're getting a look at some young guys. We're getting a look at a couple different options in a couple different spots. But it's not compelling baseball. And this loss confirmed the Twins will finish under 500 this year.
Mentioned Simeon Woods Richardson made his major league debut today. Some trouble in the first inning, errors behind him. A leadoff walk came around to score. They usually do. But what did you think of the 22-year-old today, Brandon?
Honestly, pretty good. When I think of a first big league start, there's kind of tiers to it. There's like the Trevor May tier where it blows up, the Tyler Duffy tier where it was, pretty ugly. And then everything else is kind of beneath that. I kind of feel like the average is a guy goes like 4 innings, gives up 4 runs, maybe has as many strikeouts as walks. Like that's what I envision when I see a big league debut. And that's kind of what it looked like Simeon Woods Richardson was headed towards until he kind of picked up some steam there at the end. I will have to go back and look at velocity and movement and that sort of stuff. But 61 and 91 pitches for strikes is certainly pretty encouraging. Three strikeouts, not that exciting, but only 3 hits. So, and not a lot of hits in this game to begin with. I think until the last inning there, it was 6 hits combined. So again, really a snooze fest. But for all things considered, and because they had to add him to the 40 by this offseason anyhow, I think it made sense to put him out there against a pretty shaky offense. It was a pretty good parachute of a start for him, all things considered.
His primary fastball, Brandon, today was dubbed as a cutter by StatCast. And when you look back at that, I'll be interested to hear, maybe you'll tweet about this or we can discuss it in one of our postcasts, but a cutter as his primary pitch. I didn't know that. Did you know that about Simeon? I did not know that a cutter was going to be his primary.
No, and I think what's important is we get a lot of reports as far as velocity and that sort of thing from the minors. And, I know some of those stadiums have the TrackMan, so you get pretty good data. I'm not sure how reliable it is. But to find out that if he sits 92, 91, 93, if it's got movement with a cutter, that's probably a big reason why he had such great numbers this season, because 92, 93 with movement certainly beats 92, 93 just garden variety fastball. I mean, I'm not really reinventing the wheel or making something out of nothing. So I'll be curious to see if that continues or if the algorithm will pick it up differently when he starts again next year. We'll have to see.
I hope he has a season like Tristan McKenzie has had, but he reminds me in some ways of Tristan McKenzie. Straight over the top, a lot of fastballs in that upper third of the zone, a ton of them today. He was just filling in the upper part of the zone, and then that big 12-6 curveball. Also throws the slider and the changeup. Pretty deep repertoire of pitches, Brandon. I think he did a good job battling today. And sometimes you look for that in a debut, like how do they respond? And I thought he did a good job.
Well, and what does he have to do to be in this rotation to start next year? Because it's going to be crowded. It's already going to be Gray and Malley and Ryan. Let's just assume those 3 guys are healthy, those 3 guys open. Then you've got Varland, you've got Winder, you've got Ober, you've got SWR. And I'm sure there's more obvious ones that I'm missing, and they'll probably go sign a Sean Manaea type. So it's a good cameo, and they had to, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they had to add him to the 40 this winter anyhow. So to to get that process moving faster was kind of a no-brainer. But yeah, I don't know what his role will be next year. I assume he'll be ticketed for St. Paul to start the season. But this is a good thing to build on. This is a good thing to go into the offseason and say, hey, I made my debut. I know what it takes to pitch up there. And I pitched through those jitters in the first inning and looked pretty good the rest of the way.
Reese makes a good point. Love the jersey nameplate. Absurd jersey nameplate. The wrap on that. I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen a jersey like that.
I believe it's the longest last name in MLB history,
No way.
actually.
Wow.
I think so.
I did not see that. Wow. That's crazy.
And so I'm curious, like at some point, does he petition the major leagues to just have SWR on his back? Like I wonder because, or does he just go to Richardson? I don't know, man, because that to me just seems like it's not something they would continue to do, but I'm willing to be wrong.
Yeah, I believe his mom's maiden name is Woods, and I believe his last name is Richardson. So I think that's what it is there. We'll see. That's a good point. They could end up doing that, but it was definitely funny.
Well, and it's not hyphenated either,
Right.
which is unusual.
Right.
You know, when it's hyphenated, usually it's a mixed family kind of thing. Like my mom, for instance, has a hyphenated last name. So it's definitely a unique situation.
We will not see Woods, Richardson, and Encarnacion Strand because the Twins traded him to Cincinnati.
Or Gibson Long.
Look at that. Yeah, so we get one of the three, you know, assuming Simeon's going to stay as a Twin. But yeah, that's a good point about next year's team too. Go ahead.
Well, good for Frank Hanslick, who does the letters on the jersey. He probably would have ran out of letters if Encarnacion Strand, Gibson Long, and Woods Richardson were all on the team next year. I mean, those are expensive. They don't just hand those out. So good job by the front office to kind of cut that off at the pass.
And new unis next year. So we'll see how that changes. Maybe there's less space between the letters. We'll see how that changes in the offseason. Let's touch on that, Brandon. What do you expect? Are you expecting some, because I think we're going to find out here shortly after the season ends. Are you expecting like a big shift with the logos and the uniforms and the kind of marketing edge here for the Twins?
Yeah, you know, it's curious. I think it's going to be fairly sizable, but part of me wonders if they want to modernize. Part of me wonders if because I mean, they already kind of are modernized. I mean, the Casota Gold and all that. Do they want to go back to their roots, or do they want some kind of blend of the two? And then, if that's the case, how do you bring those elements together? So I think it's going to be unique. I think it's going to be something we won't be able to see coming, and hopefully we like it. I mean, at the end of the day, what I would like to see is they just open up the trunk, so to speak, and have every uniform in play and have, you know, the M hats and the old, as Reese said, cream jerseys from, the early 80s, late 70s. Baby blues can come back. I mean, I'm on board with all of it. So, we'll see what happens because it's going to be fun to see.
I personally like the road Minnesota across the chest. I don't know how that'll change.
With the stripes?
Yeah, I love those. I actually still like the road Minnesotas now. That is kind of like prideful to have Minnesota on the front of the jersey. I like that. We'll see if that changes. I don't know. I'm very curious to see the logos too. I assume the logo will be like a slight shift, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm hopeful that it's something fans enjoy because they're already making a lot of noise about the Twins spending money, air quotes, on that instead of pitching. So the discourse is good when people are saying that.
We'll finish with this. You mentioned it, back-to-back losing seasons for the Twins. Certainly a disappointment. Last year, probably the most disappointing team, one of the most disappointing teams in Twins history last year. And then this year, one of the more disappointing second halves. So, I mean, what's your takeaway from that, Brandon? Just when you hear back-to-back losing seasons after 2019 and the COVID season where they won the division in back-to-back seasons.
Well, and you look at that COVID season and it wasn't that impressive either, if I'm being perfectly honest. Everything just kind of falls back on 2019 and the rabbit ball they used that year. So you have to look in the mirror and say, what did we do wrong here? You can talk about injuries. You can talk about Cleveland going, 21-4 in their last 25 games entering yesterday. But at the end of the day, you had the lead, you lost the lead, guys got hurt, all that stuff. How do you fix it? And it's got to be no more status quo. I think they've got to quit doing the taking flyers on pitchers who aren't very good situation. I mean, is Sean Manaea one of those guys? Is he better than Dylan Bundy? Is he better than Chris Archer? He's certainly better than Matt Shoemaker or Jay Happ. So that's that. But I'm just curious if their approach will change and how so? Because going and getting Carlos Correa was already a shift. Did it work? I mean, by definition, no. But, do they go get 2 more higher level guys instead of 1 big time guy? Do they make a trade like they haven't to this point where, they cash in some prospects for a big name? I mean, Malley, I guess, kind of qualifies there, but it's got to be something different. It can't be status quo. And so I'm curious to see what that looks like.
Big offseason ahead. I'm heading to Chicago for the game tomorrow. I was hopeful. I told Brandon this. I was hopeful that game. So much, and we'll talk again soon.